Let me pass on the floor to now Dominique Bourgault, the Senior Manager of Bizclim. Can you share with us some of the experiences that you've had on the project that you are overseeing there on the business climate at the EU ACP?
Thank you. So maybe just a short presentation of the program Bizclim. It's a program of the ACP group of states, ACP meaning Africa, which is targeting sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean and Pacific countries. And the European Union, and the program is aiming at improving the business and climate and investment climate in ACP regions. The short presentation we'll make is based on two major elements. The first one is the recommendations of the EU-Africa Business Forum. The 5th edition took place in April last year and gathered about 1,000 people. The second element is the ACP strategy for private sector support that is developed by the ACP Secretariat on behalf of the ACP group of states. The regional economic communities are doing important efforts in improving the business environment. They have done some work, some business environment programs to improve the business environment, and it's the situation of the West African region, of COMESA region, and more recently of the Central African region. But during the forum, there were really two major aspects which were problematic in developing trades, and that's the energy problem and the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure. The infrastructure increases, the lack of transportation facilities increases the cost of doing business and limits the intra-regional trade and intra-African trade. This aspect of intra-ACP trade and investment is a key component of the ACP strategy. Maybe with respect to the intra-ACP trade and investment, would like to mention an example of the Eastern African Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Agriculture in relation to the Northern Corridor. Northern Corridor is a corridor that will be connecting South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and the DRC. The Chamber of Commerce is making efforts in ensuring that the local private sector will be involved in the construction of the corridor. So they have engaged the local authorities, the regional authority, which is implementing the construction of the corridor. And to make sure that this corridor is not only, the local companies are not only involved into the construction or the construction of the implementation of the corridor, but also in trying to ensure that this transport corridor transforms or becomes an economic corridor where activity is developed along this transport corridor. So the the Chamber of Commerce has engaged the government in order to sensitize them in the need to involve the local companies, also to ensure that the regulatory framework was enabling their participation, and also on the third side, to make sure that these companies were able to participate in the sense that they had the capacity to do so, and they were well aware about the public-private partnership mechanism. Collaborating in such aspect would mainly, or would also need, means that local company will most probably have to work together. And to this respect, I would like to mention the cluster approach, which is useful tool, maybe, in order to make mentalities evolve, and having companies who are used to compete against each other work together in order to achieve common goals. And that would be an objective, for example, to reach greater markets, bigger markets. That would be a possibility to improve the technology they use. And this is specifically targeting SMEs. One of the elements which was considered as an impediment to trade and investment in Africa during the EU-Africa Business Forum, one of the elements mentioned was the vocational training. This aspect was mentioned as or either missing or being inadequate to the needs of the companies. Again, having a collaborative approach through a cluster would, through a grouping of companies, would possibly lead to an improvement of vocational training, in the sense that a grouping of companies could easily relate to the government and to the public or private educational actors in order to improve the vocational training. Final element I would like to mention as a key component also that reduces competitiveness is the access to finance. Developing local financial markets was an element which was tabled, a recommendation which was tabled, with possibly a Pan-African stock exchange market combined to lower caliber stock exchange at African level. The need to create domestic liquidity and long-term liquidity for domestic banks, and specifically targeting the SMEs and the access to finance to SMEs. And this is one of the key elements of the ACP strategy to support the private sector. They want to bridge the gap and to address the needs of the missing middle by using a wide range of financial tools. They also are targeting seed and early stage finance in order to develop, support project promoters and develop various sectors.
Yeah, thank you, Dominique, for sharing with us.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.